If that makes sense at all.
It does. Absolutely.
No.
Yeah. You
Ready?
know, I mean,
No.
go ahead.
You're just going to start now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know I'm going to mess with you, right?
She's like, sorry.
They're like jumping into questions already.
Yeah, I know, right? They say that for the show.
Everyone has a unique gift, and Mike, the creator of the One Life podcast, believes most people
I know you
don't
got
know
a
how
lot
to
of
use
questions.
their gifts or what they are.
Funny.
Mike wants you to see things from a different perspective and be true to
ready?
yourself. The One Life podcast
do it.
unites the world through
Sure.
art, fashion, music,
Comfortable?
and
I look
film.
ready.
It inspires, motivates,
Yeah,
and creates
don't say
positive energy, love, and compassion
Feel
to
it?
all communities, and
Energy,
creates an
everybody
equal
get it?
playing field for all. On the One Life podcast, they cover topics like building relationships, overcoming
I'd rather be
adversity,
extra than not
habits of
enough.
healthy people, and much, much more. We only have one life to live. Be yourself and live your truth. Add the One Life podcast to your playlist. That's the number 1 NE Life. Available on
I'm
Spotify,
nervous.
Amazon Music, Apple
I still get
Podcasts,
nervous.
and your
You're
favorite
nervous?
podcast
I get nervous
platform.
doing every show. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the One Life Podcast. I am Mike, M-I-C Reed. And we have today with my guest co-host, Diana Gaddy. I'm going to say Gaddy.
Gaddy in the house.
Gaddy in the house. With the AV Wellbeing Coalition. And we also have next to her the beautiful Yvonne Moreno. Also with the AV Wellbeing Coalition.
Yes, sir.
She doesn't know she's going to be the next guest host.
I'm down for it.
I know you are.
I'm ready.
All right. And also in the building with us, we got Sergeant Jimmy Guevara from the Marine Corps.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing today, man?
I am doing outstanding, good sir. How about yourself?
I'm doing amazing.
Love it.
But first, before we get into this conversation, we're doing a special show today to represent, not to represent, but to honor our veterans, because Veterans Day is coming up, and we're doing the show today because we want to put this out first thing Friday morning. But first, I want to give some shout outs to Keller Williams Realty of Antelope Valley. They're doing a Thanksgiving food drive, and their goal is to give out 400 meals. They're accepting donations of non-perishable food items until November 16th. Their drop-off location is at 1401 Rancho Vista Boulevard. And if you guys have any questions or anything, contact Jackie Hernandez, Becky Loa, or Belen. I'm butchering your name. I'm so sorry. I just butchered her name. Belen Sigala.
Balenciaga? No.
Sigala.
Oh, my bad.
She's a realtor. I just want to shout out to all the ladies over there at Keller Williams because they are killing the game right
That's
now.
right.
I'm hoping that makes up for butchering her name.
No.
But they are killing the game. Those are my
That's
girls
right.
over there. Also, I want to give a shout out to Trevino Law Firm. They're doing a toy drive for migrant farm workers and their families in Bakersfield. Their goal is to give out 600 toys, but they're also accepting clothes, shoes, and gift cards are welcome. So they're doing that until December 13th. And their drop-off location is at 943 East Palmdale Boulevard, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You guys have any more questions, hit up Darlene and her staff over at Trevino.law on IG.
Woo-hoo,
right.
Trevino La.
This episode is brought to you by the Money Market Business Solution, where they help you with your startup business assistance and management solutions. So reach out to them at moneymarketbusinesssolutions.com. All right, Diana.
Hey, honestly,
What?
Mike, looking at you with those glasses, I
don't like
really
my
thought
glasses.
about Diana right now. So big up to Diana, too. She just, you
Diana? What Diana?
from Eventual Events.
Oh, what's up? Yeah, my girl Diana from Eventually Events. We got to shout out her. Why that?
The last time, we had a
Oh, because y'all
just
made fun
kind
of
of
me.
highlight your
So you just want to bring that up
glasses.
again.
So big ups to my girl D.
You just want to bring that up again.
Well, I had her in mind. When I'm looking at your glasses.
I'm like, see, I know, because I can't read the little print right here.
It's okay.
How sad. Should I take mine off?
No.
I just don't like my glasses. No, they really made fun. They called me an old guy and all kind of stuff. On the
He
last
calls
show.
me a nerd.
I do actually call her a nerd.
Sad.
I like your glasses.
Thanks.
See, yours look good on you.
Yeah, they
Mine's-
do.
Yours look good on you.
No, mine's add like 15 years.
No, they don't.
They look. Hey, I used to wear glasses with no lenses in high school because I couldn't wear glasses just because.
Oh, you're just for the fashion.
Exactly. I love the way you look. That's what we were complimenting you on that, Mike. I just thought of Diana when I saw the glasses.
Put your glasses on. Don't let him peer pressure you.
Don't he look sharp?
I don't like my glasses on. I only like
Had 'em on.
because I was trying to read the shout outs and the stuff. But I'm good. From now on, rest of the show.
You guys would get
not-
along.
I don't know what she keeps saying that I'm a bully. I tell her I am not. I just like stating facts. That's all it is.
That's what they say bullies are.
No. This
Anyways.
is a bully-free zone, Mike. We just saying.
You know I'm editing all this out, right? I'm just gonna edit this out. All right, so we are here because we're representing honor. I keep saying representing. I don't know why. See, you're making me nervous.
Sorry. Oh, look.
Yvonne is making me nervous, y'all.
Always face the
We're
wall.
honoring veterans
Yes,
on the
yes.
show today. And, man, so I know about Diana. I know a little bit about Yvonne.
Yeah.
Jimmy, I met you, what was it, last week?
Yes,
at
sir.
the Hispanic Amber,
Amber, yeah.
Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, sir.
I'm a director over there. They're going to kill me. I'm just butchering everybody's names.
It's all right. It's all right.
But you gave an incredible presentation.
Thank you, sir.
So tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so just a little bit about myself. So I did serve in the Marine Corps back in 2002 to 2006, you know. I graduated at Hollywood High, so I'm really down over the hill, you know.
Okay.
And this was back in 2001, right? Right before September 11.
You graduated in 2001?
Yeah.
Oh, you're a child.
Yeah, I'm
You're very good.
well, please keep telling me that because everyone keeps telling me I'm getting old now. So please continue with that. I'm all for it. No, so I graduated from Hollywood High, and I was like, all right, what am I gonna do with my life, right? And I always wanted to serve. I was one of those like kids that just like grew up in the hood and everything. Just we need to just get away from all the craziness, right? At the same time, I saw an exit, and I applied to all the different branches across the board, and I have respect for all the branches for what they do. But when the Marine Corps recruiter approached me, he goes like, "Hey, so I see you're trying to get in, and these guys are whatever." I'm like, "All right, what do you have to bring?" I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, you're gonna hate life for the first 2 years." I'm like, "What?" Yeah, the Marine Corps doesn't promise you anything. I'm just gonna give you hell for the first 2 years. I'm like, you know what? That's probably the most honest thing I ever heard in my life. And I'm like, all right, you got me game. I'm challenged, right? So just like that, I'm also a child of a single parent. So my mom was a single mother. So I always give her kudos just for putting up with me along.
Right.
Yeah.
So just even that, just so we know, we all have our struggles and everything, but it's just like, for some reason, it's just that the Marine Corps seemed more appealing to me at the time, right? Of course, I signed up, I graduated, boom. September 11 happened, and I knew things got serious.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. I was like, okay, I better take my training really serious.
You wasn't expecting that.
Right.
Yeah, it was just like one day I just woke up at 8:45, and all of a sudden I turn on the TV, and all of a sudden there's all this footage of like, I thought it was a movie at first, to be honest with you. So I was like, what the heck is going on, right?
Right.
So I decided, you know what? I could have backed out, but I was like, you know what? I can't now. There's no way. I'm like, nothing, like my pride and everything wouldn't allow me, especially like culturally, because my family is very, like, they're Central American. So my mom's Guatemalan, my dad's Salvadorian. So I'm a little mix of pupusa and tamal in the between, right?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm Salvadorian as well. Yeah.
So, so I was like, all right, cool. And, I got shipped out and everything in January, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to do it.
Yeah.
Initially, I wanted to be a radio operator because I was like, my recruiter's like, oh yeah, cool, just do you, but at the same time, I'm like, you scored high enough that I'm not gonna make you a grunt, so I'm just gonna make you a smart grunt. That's what he said to me.
Wow.
They didn't realize he was filling a quota.
Oh.
And just call it what it is, but I actually appreciate him because I don't know, for looking back, he might have put me in a good path, right?
Right.
He did care about like where we ended up and everything, but fast forward where we're at now, right? First unit, I went to Okinawa, Japan, 1 whole year with our Marine Division. And, I learned a lot of things while I was there. The beauty about being in Okinawa is like I learned a new culture. I finally got outside of Los Angeles. I finally got left California.
Right.
I always tell people, after that experience, I recommend people travel. Go everywhere. Experience different cultures.
Right.
Because, oh my God, the philosophies and the way of life is so much different.
Right. I can definitely agree with
100%.
that.
And I always I learned so much from that. And I always tell people, I give so much credit just because I was, I guess I could say I don't want to say I was brave because I wasn't. I feel like I was eager just to get out, right?
Right.
That's when it comes down to it, right?
Right.
And sure enough, like we were still, a lot of us were still like, why are we still not in the war effort? I thought because we're in Japan, we're closer to Iraq. Like, hey, are they going to send us or not? We're still here waiting, right?
Exactly.
They're like, no, you still have to support the effort in the Asian Peninsula, right? I was like, all right, so what? So sure enough, someone found out that the next unit was leaving was going to be in Lejeune. So a lot of my cohort, we said, you know what? We're leaving. We're just going to go to Lejeune, and we'll figure it out once we get there. Like, again, remember, these are a bunch of 20, 19, 21-year-olds.
Wow.
They're just like looking for a fight at this point.
Right. Something like an escape from maybe you can say their reality, right?
Correct.
From what it was, from maybe the unknown.
Yeah.
Trying to find that. Okay.
And at the same time, for us, it was almost like, it was a rite of passage, in an odd sense at that moment, because it was like, it was almost felt like that was our era. This was our era where we need to cross over. That's what it felt a little off.
Right.
But at the same time, it didn't feel off, but it just felt like something we needed to do. We all ended up in the same unit back in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Now we're there. We're all.
Wait a minute, I got to pause real quick.
Yeah.
So all these commercials right now that's going on with Camp Lejeune. Mm-hmm. Did you call the number?
No, heck no, I don't call that number. I hate to say it, like, I'll be honest with you, like nothing against the people that are trying to make money off that, and I get that, right? But because I'm in the service of helping veterans and also helping like a lot of military families, we offer a lot of our services for free, like especially through the county of Los Angeles, any county actually across California. Wow! So you really don't have to go pay somebody to put in a disability,
right?
And
so that's just a money grab, then.
Correct, it is.
Okay.
And nothing against it. Like, again, maybe they have better lawyers. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying, but if it's something simple as just like, maybe you have a hearing problem or like back hurts and everything, then we could put those in as long as there's like obviously a service connected to your military.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
So, that's kind of what we do. We got a lot of veterans to maneuver that system, right? So so the Camp Lejeune thing, I never called it.
No, it's crazy because when those commercials started coming out, and they really aggressive with it.
Yeah,
like I always knew that it had to be something about a money grab.
Yeah,
right, and that's just not right. For me, like I never served, right? So definitely big ups to you and appreciate your services. For me, I was supposed to go into the Marines. Like me and my brother, because I grew up in Inglewood. Yeah. So we went to the recruiting office there, and me and my brother, we trained for like 6 months. Because before we had to go out, we went to the beach, ran the sand. Like I used to work at the Marine Corps recruiting office, and became real close friends with the 2 sergeants there. And I really thought I was going. Yeah. But come that week that I was supposed to go with my brother, I didn't go. I was like, I'm not going. But the crazy thing about it is my brother went, right? He went right after boot camp, I went to the ceremony and all that. And he literally came up to me and was like, you are lucky. He was like, I'm glad you didn't go. He was like, you would have not liked it. Because he know me. Yeah. Like I've been on my own since I was 14. And back then I didn't like nobody telling me what to do. So he knew I would have had a problem. Oh, yeah. But, even before that, because I think I was around 19 when I was supposed to go. So I'd already been on my own for like 5 years and just doing me. And like how you were saying about traveling, right? I had already been exposed to traveling and different things at that age. So I already knew what I wanted to do. Yeah.
And I think that's amazing because a lot of us don't know that, right? Like some of us been like, we've only been stuck in our own little society, like a little cluster, right? And we think what we have is like, and then we see all these other things that are going on around the world. Like, well, this is common sense. Why don't we just fix this? No, well, because we're also not looking at the cultural component, especially like yourself. Like, you came up at a younger age than most of us did, so you mature a lot faster than a lot of us did.
Well, I mean, I had to.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Just been leaving the house at 14. Like I was like literally homeless. Like I had to mature. I had to fend for myself because my parents wasn't there. So I was like I had to. I didn't have a choice.
I'm curious to know, why didn't you go though, Mike?
Why didn't I go?
Yeah.
Just hearing all the stories and like the whole boot camp thing. It was the boot camp thing, really. Like, because I honestly, and this is why I do a lot of public service now and helping the community, because I love doing that. So I just do it in a different way. But for me, it was the boot camp. Like, I really wanted to become a Marine, but it was that whole boot camp, like hearing the stories, and I was like, yeah, I ain't gonna like that. Like I already knew I wasn't gonna like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, and I always say, like, a lot of times, in the military is not for everyone too. Like, there were some people that stayed in, and I was like, why are they still in? And this is very dangerous for all of us too, you know. So just having there is a certain criteria that we try to weed out from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
But I would say this: anybody growing up in the neighborhoods that we grew up with, I do recommend that, like you said, because it gives them the exposure. And I've always talked about this, like for kids, I was very blessed at a young age for someone to take me out of the neighborhood and take me to Hollywood, right? So I was exposed to certain things. Kids that just grew up in the neighborhood, like they're not exposed to anything, so that's all they know. So a lot of times we can't really blame them. Like we gotta, as a society, like help them, you know, and expose them to different things. So the military is the perfect opportunity for that.
Correct.
And I know a lot of people that grew up in the neighborhood that did go to the military, and they turned out great.
Yeah.
So it is a great thing to do.
Yeah, you know, my husband, when we got married, when we were pregnant, that was something that he actually wanted to do. He actually also went to Hollywood High, and he's around your same time, and he also comes from a single.
I feel old now.
From a single mom. No, you're not. Come on now. And it's funny that he went to the recruit, and they pulled me aside and asked, you know, like, are you okay? You know, because I'm pregnant. And I told them, no, this is not what I want. Yeah. I said, I do not want my family separated and divided. I said, because if something happens to him, what happens to me and my child? And now my son will also grow up without a father like how he did. Right. And is that what you want for us? And after that, you know, we really talked about it. And to this day, sometimes I do feel bad. Like, did I hold him back from that? But I look at our blessings now, and I think we might have done the best decision for us, because I think he also wanted to kind of, you know, get out of that, I guess, I don't want to speak for him, but maybe what he was around his surroundings. But I kind of dragged him out, like, if that's what you want, come to the AV. Yeah. Come with the gal from out here.
Well, look, this one of the philosophies I like teaching a lot of my veterans and everything is like, forget about the past. Like, it's okay to visit. I always say it's okay to visit. Go back there, say what's up, look at your memories, but don't live there. You know, I always say don't live there.
Oh, absolutely.
Same with the future. Don't try to predict the future. Don't try to figure it out. Like, whatever you work on today is going to help you. Tomorrow's going to come regardless if you want it or not. Yeah. I always say that, right? And with a lot of my veterans, I'm like, if you keep worrying about tomorrow, you're not living today. If you worry about yesterday, guess what? Then when are you going to start living for your future today, right? And that's usually the hardest, like, pill to swallow for a lot of us, because we love living in those glory days, right? Like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with veterans. It could be with anybody that lived it, did the high school football thing, the cheerleader thing, the popular thing. I always call it the Al Bundy syndrome. I'm all like, you know, don't like, okay, he keeps reliving that over and over, like,
oh yeah.
So true salesman. He always tells people about his football day.
So Yvonne, get close to the mic. or pull it closer to you. Not you get closer, but yeah, because you're getting lost over there. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why are you involved with the AV Wellness Coalition?
So, I mean, I was born out here.
Okay.
I was born in Lancaster, and so I hated it here forever. I thought it was the worst place to live, and you know, all my friends in school, everywhere, they were like, "Oh, I'm from LA. I'm from here. I'm from there." And I'm like, "Oh, I was born in Lancaster," and I hated it. I was so embarrassed. And so, you know, by the time I was 21, I was like, "I'm gonna move, and I'm never gonna come back." I was married at the time, and so we moved up north to Redding, 8 hours away. I had no friends, I had no family, anything. I would just look on a map. I was like, we're getting the hell out of here. And so we left, and I was there for like 3 years. Ended up getting divorced, came back, and starting over, you know what I mean, with my kids, by myself. And So I had to learn to kind of like it here, because I was like, okay, this is obviously I'm here. My dream was to leave, and I'm back. So there's a reason that I'm here. Right. So I just started appreciating little things, and it was the sunset and the sunrise, and I would go hiking, you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, this is so freaking beautiful. And I would go to other places and I wouldn't see that. And I was like, something about the desert, something about this place is different. There is something different. It's not just, this hellhole, like people are stuck. Like some people actually like it here. Yeah. Some people actually like and appreciate the little beautiful things about this place.
Because you could be present, right? I think you could be present with what's your reality, your surroundings, with your today. Yeah. And I think nature here, AV sunsets and sunrise, they show off.
It's different.
Yeah, different. Yeah, it is different.
That's the best way to say it. I always say that when we used to carpool or take the kids, I would be like, man, Mother Nature's showing off. Look at all the colors. Look at all the, but that's my word, it's showing off today.
It's true though. And my kids now, like my son, he's 23, and he'll be like, he'll be going to work or doing whatever he's doing, and he'll send us, because we have this group text with me and my kids, and he'll send it, and my daughter is in Texas, and she'll send the sunsets for like us, whatever in Texas. It's like it's a whatever. And so, but like my kids are the same way. They like see the sunrise, and I'm like, you know what, we're gonna move, like we got to get out of here. And they're like, no, like this is home. And so now I feel like this is home. So a few years ago, it was like 2 years ago when we the coalition.
Yes, it was 2020. Yeah,
it was 2020.
In the middle of
so
COVID.
At the time, I was manager at this veteran program. So I was at this organization for like 6 years. I was managing that program, and so I got this email from the city of Palmdale that they were inaugurating certain people. So you had to kind of fill out this application and talk about why you wanted to be a member of the Wellbeing Coalition and what their purpose was and why you're so great, right? All of these things. Right. And I was like, I want to try it, whatever. And then they were going to sponsor us. It was like, what, almost $5,000?
Yeah.
It was $5,000.
$5,500 actually.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. So I got the email like, you're an inaugural member of the Antelope Valley Wellbeing Coalition. I was like, holy crap. All right, let's do it. So I was like, cool. So now I'm going to go. And so when I went to that class, there was, 60 of us?
Yeah, just about, a little bit over 50, 55, I think, something like that.
And it was all of these different people. It was like the city manager, Palmdale Lancaster, members of Chamber of Commerce, managers, directors, pastors, psychiatrists, counselors, all these different leaders of the Antelope Valley. And all they talked about was how much they loved it here and how much they were put in the positions that they were in for a reason to make a difference, and they all wanted to be here and make a difference. And I was like, holy crap, these are my people. Yeah. Like, these are my people, right? Yeah. And I was like, for once, oh my God, I'm not embarrassed. Like, these are my people. They want to make this place better too. Yeah.
So what's your connection with the veterans? And is it because of that program?
Yeah, because I managed, and I just kind of fell into it. I didn't even know what a veteran was. I worked in this probation program before. And one of my friends, he was a real good friend of mine. He was a veteran. I think he was, I don't even know what branch he was in. And he was like, he left and he was like, hey. So I had this friend and he was like, do you want to come over here and work with me? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, we're hiring. I was like, okay, awesome. So I sent in my resume. I came for the interview. And I was like, I'm hired. We're going to work together. And he was like, well, actually, we're not. I was like, why? What do you mean? He's like, well, I'm moving to Washington, so you're actually taking my spot. And so that's how I got in, because I knew him. Otherwise, like, you have to have a bachelor's degree, doctorate degree. You can't just get in there unless you know. Yeah, I don't have a degree. I just have I just have experience and life experience. You know what I mean? So, so that's what happened. I started being a case manager, and I just got promoted and
but even through the AV Wellbeing Coalition, I wasn't very knowledgeable with, the Gotti side of the connection with military. You know, his grandfather served in World War II, and 3 of his uncles served in the Vietnam War, where I had no clue. And it wasn't until we did the Welcome Home reenactment for these veterans, and I was just talking to them and just seeing their faces light up. I was just like, oh my goodness, right? So then my mother-in-law was having having surgery, and my the sister came with us and was spending some time. And I asked her, and I said, "Hey, like, we're doing this event for class, and I really don't know much, but I kind of know that there's some sort of connection." And when she told me that he served in World War II and in Vietnam, I was just blown away, and that reconnected me with that. And even when we were giving pins to these veterans, and they would stop in front of us and be like, "Thank you. I waited so long for this."
So what did they? I mean, you was telling me about this earlier.
Yeah.
Like, so what did they mean by that? Like, they were waiting so long for what? Just for the recognition?
For the welcome home, because it was, it was a war where our veterans came back and they were just spitted on, called names, and just hated. They were rejected from jobs. They were treated like if they were not American, right. Like if they did not serve for our country, for what we stand. So that gave me just a whole different perspective on our veterans, where sometimes we overlook it, or we see stories or any of that. But at the end of the day, they're the ones that sign up.
Correct.
They're the ones that go out and really put themselves out there, even through, like you were saying, you're still channeling a few things, right? And you're still trying to figure that out while putting your life in reality for what we represent. For us to be able to say, "Hey, I'm going to go have Starbucks with Mike," you know what I mean? Right. And not really have to worry about anything else. But what those veterans did for us in Vietnam, they really just put it all out there, not really even knowing what they were going out there for. Right. No, it's okay. So yeah, that, and then I in the coalition, I was kind of part of so many groups. I was a little bit of everything. But when I connected with that, I had no idea that, there was a lot of connection with our family to the veterans. And we have from Navy, we have a Marine, and his grandfather was in the Army. And he actually was born in the Philippines, but was adopted from a family here in Texas. So he really, took pride in being part of the American military, right? And he was able to go back to his country and bring his family here. And they really take a lot of pride in that, from the opportunities, like you say, that you really might not really see it at the beginning, but long-term, look at where we are today.
Right. So,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, just to add on what you're saying is like, we are, like, our generation ourselves, we owe a big gratitude to the Vietnam veterans across the board, like the post 9/11 veterans. I don't know if you ever hear that term, but the reason I always say that is because they're the ones that were kicking down the door every day. Of
absolutely.
Like, we have needs. We have all these other things that are going on, coming back from war. We have all these, and nobody was listening for the longest time. And of course, being, it was an unpopular war. And them to deal with that, having the resilience to push through and still advocating for other veterans and other brothers and sisters out there that are like, they're still suffering, they're still hurting. Yeah. And for them to come back, and with the data they came back with post-traumatic stress disorder, which wasn't a term that wasn't even used yet. Right. They brought that term forward for everyone to understand that this is more than just shell shock or just war fatigue, or the different terms they've used across the board for a long time. For them, I know we owe a debt of gratitude for why we have the resources that we have now because of them, and for them to be able to feel finally welcome home. I think that alone it's amazing, just because even I had, like, when y'all like did that event, I know we published it and everything at our VPAN site. We had veterans coming down all the way from, like, Fresno. Yeah. We had people coming all the way down from Hollywood, all the way down from Long Beach. We had people and these people I knew because I met them at the American Legions and different places. Like, you brought your grandfather? That's amazing. But I'm like, he's like, he lives so far. I'm like, he didn't care. He wanted to come here because it was the one and only of its kind. That existed ever, like a welcome home, a legitimate welcome home for a veteran.
And they didn't even ask for it. That's the thing. Nobody asked for it. Like, it was, it was just amazing. And for me, like the part that I'll never forget is when we pinned them and when we said, you know, from a grateful nation. Once they literally looked at you in your eye when we gave them this pin, and they all had tears. They were like literally like, thank you. They don't know who I am, but I gave them the pin and I told them, you know, you present it to them that way, and they're so like, you could see their hearts were just like, thank you, you know, and then they shook your hand and you could really feel like their soul, you know what I mean? Like they were like, finally, so thank you. And they walked off and they just kind of look around, and it's like, holy crap, this is bigger than this event. Yeah. This is definitely bigger than just this event. It's like really the whole goal of it was to relive that moment for them, so they feel like, okay, I'm a Vietnam veteran and I'm proud. Yeah. And I'm actually worth something. I'm not a piece of crap because of the welcome home that I previously got. Right. So it was an honor. That was so
I actually ran into a family there that he didn't really speak a lot of English, and the daughter was with him, and she goes, I don't know where my dad should go. And I said, oh no, we're having all of the veterans here. And she said to me, you know, my dad, he's starting to show symptoms of Alzheimer's. He said, and he sometimes forgets things. He goes, but he made sure that he was here today because he needed to be here. Mm-hmm. And just saying that, I was just blown away because I was just there to help. I really didn't know. And when we were in line, like she said, we were pinning, there was a gentleman that had his hat still from war with all of the bomb pins in his hat. And he wore those same boots that he wore out there on his feet. And he said, I needed to be here with my gear to be welcome home on this day. So big up actually to Alejandro from our AV Wellbeing Coalition, that he is also a veteran. And this was a vision that he wanted to bring to life. And I remember him asking me like, hey, I kind of had this idea, I don't know, to reenactment, have everyone kind of dress up like, you know, like back then. And I was just like, oh, okay. You know, I didn't really know the depths of it and the meaning, but seeing those veterans and even the surveys that we were getting back, one person said, this gave me hope. Hope? Yeah. My goodness. From just this small gesture. And it was just an idea that it's not that hard to be kind, you know?
So should it be more events like that?
Absolutely.
Well, so there's going to be. So with the coalition, that was our group. It was the veteran group. So that was our finished product. And so that's, the coalition did it one time. Mm-hmm. Alejandro, he's actually forming his own nonprofit. It's called Boots on the Grounds Alliance, and he's going to do another event like that. It's going to be different though, but his plan is to do another Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans every year, but just kind of look different. So with that group that he's forming. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of want to touch on this because, you know, I love having conversations. I just truly believe, you know, healthy conversations can change everything. Mm-hmm. You know, and even though I'm not a veteran, but, you know, I've talked to people, I've talked to veterans, and I don't know if it's I don't know where the disconnect is, but it seems like, and maybe you can answer this for me, Jimmy, because it seems like there's a lot of programs out there and the services like you guys do, and it's great that you guys do that. But there seems like there's still a disconnect from when our veterans come home, like we see the homelessness, right? Yes. And honestly, I hate seeing it. Yeah. Because those are the men and women that keep us safe and how we are able to live our lives out here. But for me to see that, like, I don't understand it. So, I mean, like, I don't know if you can shed some light on that, like.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the way I look at it, because right now managing this program for the LA County, right? I cover everything from the 5th District. So anything LA County 5th District, anything from Antelope Valley, Santa Clarita, Pasadena, Burbank, all the way to San Dimas, right? Mm-hmm. And parts of Hollywood. It varies from culture to culture, right? Every city has its own culture, has its own thing, right? That's one thing I've been learning just being in this position.
Right.
But the disconnect really comes from the Department of Defense, and I'm not going to throw all their blame on them because it really has to do a lot with our legislators, our senators, and anybody that's in charge of actually running and actually funding these programs.
Hey, you know what? Just to interrupt you, I actually talked to a lady who just moved out here like a year ago, and she was from the Army, I believe, and she was a part of like when you get out. I forgot her title, but when you get out, you're supposed to go through her and
the TAPS program,
something like that.
Yes,
but she said it like that program that when she was in the Army, it wasn't ran correctly, and that's why a lot of the veterans, they come out here and they're all lost and they don't get the help and the services they need.
Yeah, so one of the programs I think that you're mentioning is called the TAPS program. It's supposed to be a transitional program.
Transitional, right, yeah.
Yeah, so, but the issue with that I've always had, not the issue, but the challenges that we have with the TAPS program, it's run by the Department of Labor. So you don't really get screened for mental health. You don't get screened for, income. You don't get screened to where you're going next, right? They give you a bunch of information, and at the same time, think about it. You just got back. Let's say you just got back from deployment, right? You think resources at the moment is the thing you're trying to figure out. You're trying to figure out what you just saw. You're trying to process everything you've been through. Yeah, they give you 2 weeks of like rest and relaxation, but within those time frame, you're kind of on your own. You're just kind of hanging out with your buddies, and you're just reliving that moment. You're reliving those, and so you're not really getting supported from the chain of command at all. You're just kind of just being left on your own, like your own devices. They give you a brief. And the first brief they tell you when you get back is like, oh yeah, don't have intimacy with your partner within the first first week. I thought that was hilarious but then I didn't understand that. I didn't understand at the moment. It meant because there was so much domestic violence happening. There was so much of that, and I'm just, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it because that's the reality of what we live in.
Right. That's interesting that you did that. They would even say that.
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'll think about it. Then let's add another layer of that, right? The military is not equipped to bring everybody's family to where you're at to get picked up, right? Those that live in the area just happen to know how the system works, or because they have like family in the military and know how that works. You'll see their families. A lot of the veterans that come back from wherever they're coming back, they have their families already stationed there. Everyone else doesn't have a clue, or they don't have the money or resources to have their family fly out. Like my family lived in California.
Right.
They were not going to come out the way of June, especially that they're working on. They're barely like we see it every day. Like you live in Los Angeles, we're just surviving, right? Like in certain places. Now think about getting a plane ticket from there, leaving work, and just to say hi for about maybe a couple of days, and then go back home. So when we go to a transitional program, unfortunately, their main focus is just so you get, here's the resources, here's a booklet, have fun. Enjoy your time. Thank you for your service. And there's a door.
Wow. At
the same time, while that's happening, they want you to just find a job. That's their main focus. Get a job. Now that you're done, get a job. You see a lot of you even I think a lot of the movies even depicted this, and I think the best scene for me with that was when I saw the movie The Pacific, not the movie, the miniseries The Pacific.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the story, you see the war veteran that came back. And they asked him, so what are you good at? And unfortunately, he had to mention, I'm good at killing.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And then at the end, he just didn't want to deal with society anymore. He didn't want to be part of that system. So kind of going back to, the question of hand, why is it so difficult? Why do we have so many different challenges? Because the DOD is not answering answering the right question, which is what does the veteran need to get home and transition, and what other resources are there, what other mental health aspects. They don't really do a psychological evaluation.
Right.
They just kind of tell you, how you feeling? And and then of course, remember, they've ingrained 4 years, 20 years of, I'm okay, shut up, suck it up, and push through it.
Right.
Wow.
So you're not going to ever say, and then of course in the military, mental health is seen as one of the biggest stigmas ever. It's like when you go, for us, it's like, you want to go see the wizard? I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to go see the wizard, the mental health specialist.
Right.
Because the biggest fear at least for a Marine aside, is getting your weapon removed because they're in your career.
That's it. Yeah.
They take your weapon away, you might as well just kiss your career goodbye and go home.
So they're not really building a psychological safety
Right.
when
They're
you get
not.
back, right?
Yeah.
And we were kind of touching on that, on building that psychological safety. But another thing that I did see that you also, I might have posted and mentioned that it's Mental Health for Men Awareness Month, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's something that I actually did touch on that, where sometimes with that men, right, that stigma where you're saying you don't want to go see the wizard, or is it that how can we ask for help, right? We're not very good at asking for help with generational, you know, like upbringing, right? A man is supposed to be this strong or, you know, always be the winner or the hero, right? But when can I say I'm not okay?
Yeah, and
Right.
it's also ingrained in military culture. On top of that, right? Like, think about it. You're given a rank to take care of subordinates, right?
Right,
So most of the time, I might be in pain, I might be tired,
right,
but I can never show it. I can never
Right.
let my troops know that, like, yeah, I'm hurting too. But all I could say is just like, look, just push through it. It's temporary.
right.
We'll get through it. It's not that like. And then the funny thing is always downplaying it. I always downplay even the
Right.
dangers of like. I'm like, it's all right. I'm like, it didn't even come near us. We'll be good. Keep pushing.
Wow.
Just keep sucking it up and push it. And that was the mentality of coming out, right? Now when we're out, we're on
Right.
our own. We're not going to ask for help because
How do you channel that?
we haven't been trained to ask for help.
So what's the solution to that? Then, you know, I mean, I don't know how long you've been out, but I mean, you've been with JVS SoCal. How long?
So now we have a new program through the LA County, right? Called Veteran Peer Access Network. The whole concept is to use peers to help other peers to kind of maneuver through the system.
Okay.
Because we like military culture, we talk a different language. It's kind of like, you know, everybody in entertainment talks a different language.
Right.
So
Right.
same with anywhere you go. That's why I
Right.
think
Right.
peers are very important in mental health because a lot of times a lot of veterans will go to the VA and it's a training facility for a lot of interns, right? For a lot of the universities.
Oh.
And so imagine going to your 50-year-old Vietnam or 60-year-old Vietnam veteran,
Right.
and you're talking to a brand new 25-year-old mental health specialist that never even been outside of Los Angeles.
Right.
Wow. You're so right.
Yeah.
It creates a challenge. It creates
Yeah.
barriers, even though
Yeah.
the system is there to support them, but it's just not. It's hard to really open up until, you know, they could really build that
Right.
trust. And at the same time, a lot of veterans are going to test their mental health specialists by saying the hardest thing they could say to them, and God forbid you flinch. God forbid you flinch, because then right there, I, at least as a veteran, I know
Yeah.
you can't handle the rest. And if
Right.
you can't handle this
Wow.
little piece of it, how are you going to handle the rest of
Right.
everything else I'm holding on to?
Yeah.
To be relatable, right? Building that psychological safety. I go back to that. To relatable, where I always say, if I don't know where you're coming from, it's really hard for me to understand unless you're able to share that with me. And even then, like you say, how am I going to handle what you have to say if I don't know where you're coming from, right?
And you know what? That's funny because that applies to everything across the board. Because even when I first met you, when I did that, when you first heard me speaking, I told you that's why I want to do inspirational or motivational speaking, is because I come from the neighborhood, right? But and why I want to go to the schools is because a lot of times people go to schools and they hear these assemblies, right? But you have these educators up there that probably went to Beverly Hills or came from wherever. And it's like they can't relate to these kids, right? So that's why they need someone else like myself that grew up in the neighborhoods and around gangs and drugs, and I made it out of it, and they can relate to me.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And I agree with that. And that's the reason why our team is made up of all veterans, right?
Yeah.
And so when we go out there, we have veterans that have that lived experience. We have veterans in my team that have been homeless. We have veterans that have dealt with military sexual trauma. We have veterans that have dealt with, they've been in a combat zone. We've had veterans that have lived all the different modalities and challenges, not only from going to school to dealing with the transitioning, and even having conversations with your own family. It's alone. You don't, like, a lot of veterans don't expect their families to ever understand what they've been through. And so imagine the rest of the population. We're 1% of the population that actually served. Then the rest of everyone else is like, we're in our own shadows, right? That's why a lot of times you'll see us walking confidently by ourselves, or just or like sometimes we'll run into another veteran, and it's like it's an automatic connection. It's like, cool, let's keep talking. I want to know more. Like, how'd you get there? Like, then we help each other. We're better at that than anything else, right?
That's funny because now just in my mind thinking, because my brother, like I said, he went to the Marines, right? And I think he did like 2 tours, right? He was in Saudi. Okay. But every time we argue, it's like I always walk away because like, I can't argue with you. Like, I don't know what's in your mind. You know what I mean? And my brother, I mean, he's a year older than me, but he's shorter than me. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I kind of know I can take you, but at the same time, it's like, I don't really know what's going on in your mind. So I just walk away.
You know, I'm going to go ahead and just.
Because he's a Marine. Yeah. And like, Marines don't back down for nothing.
Yeah.
And like,
right.
And that's exactly. I mean, that we take pride in that. And that's why, like, we're like, I always tell, like, today we did a presentation at the correctional facilities, right? We have a lot of correctional officers that are also former military, right? Mm-hmm. I laugh because I tell all my Marines, I get it. We're gonna howl at the moon tomorrow, November 10th. We're gonna just lose ourselves and everything, right? Because that's our Marine Corps birthday. Right. So everything's about tradition for us, right? And we try to live off like our brothers that went to Vietnam. We try to live off the Gulf War brothers. Every Grenada, Korea, World War II, World War I, everything we have. The reason we're even called Devil Dogs is because of World War I, the Belleau Woods fight, right? And the Germans, they said that we fought like dogs from hell, and that's how we ended up with the nickname Devil Dog. So that's like, even just that, just remembering all our traditions, we try to live up to that. Like, okay, our brothers went through hell before, so now we gotta live up to that reputation every day that we're there.
But don't you think, Yvonne, that's kind of almost like gratitude, right? But without labeling it that. Yeah. When you really think
like
about,
you're honoring them. You have to honor them, and so you have to live up to what they sacrificed. You want to honor them. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
And I would almost say, like, in a way, it is the gratitude that we're taught in apply positive psychology, but in a different way, right? Yeah. It's how can we channel, like what you say, how that, I won't say it's stigma, but maybe what you've been through that can come with the negative, but how can we channel that, right? To allow some of the veterans to say, hey, it's okay. I know where you're coming from. And like what you're saying with your group, what I see in that connection is that gratitude, that where we don't tell our veterans, thank you. We don't really appreciate what they did. Right. Because like Mike said, I wouldn't have done it. I talked my husband out of it. And it was easier for me to downplay it than his brother that did go through it, right? And when he came back, he said, like, man, Mike, I don't know, like if you could have, but I don't really think he was telling you that. What he really saw was like what you're explaining, the truth of it. But you're not going to admit to that, right? Yeah. Because that was your, let's say, your exit to that. But how can you really process everything prior to that, in between, and that after? And I think that's kind of what you were saying. How can we help our veterans that are homeless, that are going through their struggles, that have gone through maybe those hiccups in life, right? How can we reassure them and give them that gratitude, that same Marine core value? Because that's what I saw or what I heard, right? Even you saying like, tomorrow's our birthday. Shoot, my gratitude hit like, whoa, man, I wish I was up at that ball, right?
Nah, you know what? I was just telling Diana earlier, like, I love all the men and women that served, right? Even the veterans and today, that's on the front lines right now. Only thing I don't like is the politics that come with it. Like how you were saying earlier, it's just like I have a friend that was in the Marines, right? And I forgot where he was, but he went through some training. He wasn't even supposed to be in combat. He was just supposed to be an office guy. Yeah. And they all of a sudden threw him out there one day, and he went through all this training. And then when he came back, he got into it with his CO or somebody, and he ended up hitting him, and he got discharged, dishonorably discharged. Now, my thing about that, and this is my opinion, now he's all screwed up, but he can't use none of his benefits or anything. And I'm like, but y'all put him through that.
Correct. And
That's wrong. That's where the politics come. That's wrong. Like
Correct.
you guys put him through that. Like, and that's why he's how he is right now. So he has that mental disorder and all that because of the war you put him in.
Correct. And that's something we see a lot, right? We have a lot of veterans that come in that have maybe dishonorable discharges or OTHs, which is other than honorable discharges. And so we also try to support those veterans. We don't turn anybody away, regardless of discharge status.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So regardless of whether they served honorably or not.
So I'm sorry, dude, but do they know that?
Yes. So that's the biggest thing we try to promote. That's kind of our biggest promotion when it comes to our helping veterans, because a lot of times we're able to, depending on the situation, not saying that everything is upgradable.
Right.
We might not be able to upgrade it on the federal side, but we could at least upgrade it in the VA where they see you as applicable for VA.
Wow, that's
benefits.
amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So that's the reason why, like a lot of those times, this is why we came into play, because this came out of the Department of Mental Health. So this, our whole model doesn't come from the business side, doesn't come from the Department of Labor.
Yeah.
Our whole model comes from mental health side, right? We try to look at like all the program managers in the VPAN program for the 5 districts were all mental health specialists for that reason.
Yeah.
And we have a team of Department of Mental Health veterans as well with us to go out there and do evaluations and try to figure out, is this a mental health thing or is it just maybe just a social support thing that we need to figure out, right?
But either way, you're still there.
Right.
And I think that's big.
No, that is. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, because we needed that. And then because I needed that when I came out, because I didn't know where to move. I remember a lot of times I walk into the VA, not lost in the sauce, not sure where to go, right?
Wow.
And even myself, like I served, I did 2 deployments back to back in 2005 in Fallujah, right? And it was, and I did my own thing and I experienced what I had to experience, right? Coming back home, it was a whole new world. It was just like all my friends were different. I couldn't relate with them. Like then I got removed from my I guess you could say like my extended family, which was more my family than my actual real family, right? With that alone, I lost track of a lot of them because they got scattered through the winds too. They some of them went back, some went contract, some got out, but they went back to their designated state.
Right.
So now, like, who do you like? We walk into a lot of these places, they didn't know what to do with us. They didn't know how to talk to us. They just realized that like, here's a piece of paper, go do what you have to do. But I was like, okay, and so it's just like.
Right.
We just kind of came into this weird numbness, right? And so for us, this is why the program came into play, because a lot of us that have that experience, we're like, we know what it's like not to have some guidance, where to go. Right? I didn't know for the longest time that I was eligible for veteran health care. They might have told me, but was I ready to pay attention within that first week I got back?
Right.
Or even to follow up, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. They don't. It's just more just like, oh, you're on your own, have fun, enjoy yourself, right? And so that's the reason why until I started talking with other veterans and actually engaging with other veterans, and I was like, wait. And then it wasn't because one of my buddies, right? Yeah, he was an Army Ranger. I used to work for cable company, right? Back out of Burbank. And he's like, hey, you deployed, right? I'm like, yeah. Like, and I was always very like about it, very straightforward, like very like, yeah,
right.
And I'm like, that's what it was. It was my attitude was way different back then.
Well, because that's kind of how they almost force you to be, right?
Right.
Here's your paper, go, and so it's absolutely. Yeah.
So it made me laugh. He goes like, and I'm like, yeah, what about it? And I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like, well, I'm an Army Ranger. Yes, you tell me every day. Yes, I know you're an Army Ranger. Thank you. I'm like, thank you, Mr. freaking Ranger here. And we're actually really good friends actually. Yeah. We banter each other a lot. But anyway, long story short, it took him 3 years to finally convince me to go in.
Wow.
3 years of him just like, well, you did this, you did that, you done this, you did that, you did that. How do you not? I'm like, the number one thing. What was the number one thing? Was it like, I'm fine, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Many of my buddies are not. So what does it matter?
Right.
That was always that.
Yeah.
And maybe it was also like, I just didn't want to admit that I was also broken too.
Yeah. But also him seeing, right, the difference in him kind of almost got your attention, right?
Yeah.
You know, maybe his joy was a jolt of joy.
Yeah.
In a way,
Yeah,
you know, so they could have been processing through what and how, you know, like they were able to pull each other out, you know, like what we also learned is when we're languishing, right? We kind of hit that the last time is how we really are in a blah state. Kind of, you can say that, right? Not necessarily depression, right? Or sometimes some of our veterans that are, you know, homeless, that don't know, they might have came back languishing in that blah state, right? And then fell into a depression, right? And then not being able to get out of just that depression, you go into clinical depression where you need medical help, where you need medication. But when are we able to see what state we're at until we're that far deep,
Right.
you know? And that's where what I think happened to you was the fact that he was still able to be joyful, be happy. You know, we even teach our students, like when you're languishing the best, you know, how can you get out of that? Through a jolt of joy. And I truly believe that that's what he kind of was to you too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was one of the only ones that we really connected because there was only like 3 of us or 4 of us that were veterans that came back from Iraq. You know, he deployed himself as well, and so we had a different connection, and of course because we still get together and everything. They're like, why are you guys always arguing? We're not arguing. We're actually we're conversating, right? And it's kind of, I think the best saying he ever said was, they're like, you know what? Don't get in a fight between brothers, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. Regardless of, you know, he was an Army Ranger, and I was like, I'm a Marine Corps veteran and everything. They're like, it didn't matter. At the end of the day, like we spoke still the same language, regardless of branch, right?
Yeah.
And that alone, and I owe him a debt of gratitude because he did like wake me up, right? I would say that was the first awakening.
Yeah.
And just to really realize that put me in a path where now I'm helping other veterans just like he helped me, right? Now I have the privilege, because that's what it is to me. It's a privilege to be able to watch veterans get out of their situation, get out of homelessness, you know, work through some of their depression, because I have a dual role. You know, I'm a program manager for the VPAN program for District 5, but on the part-time side, this is why I was late.
That's okay.
What do you call it? I'm also a resiliency trainer through UCLA Veteran Family Wellness Wellbeing Center. You know?
Oh.
So I'm actually holding 2 roles, right?
Hey.
And so I get to train veterans how to use communication skills, how to use their story as a resiliency, versus just being like, no, this was my story and I went through. It was a hard time. Yes, it was a hard time. Yeah. But what got you through that? Right. Yeah. What keeps you here? What, you know, use every modality that I've ever learned from the clinical side to be able to say, let's maneuver, let's shift. And these are the same words I use even in the military. Even now I use it, like, how are we pivoting? How are we going to shift? Mm-hmm. Yes, there's an obstacle, there's a challenge. How do we overcome this challenge?
Mm. Yeah, I actually read a book, Brene Brown, you know, Daring Greatly. Mm. You know, and it's almost like it's that stigma, right? When we're vulnerable, we think we're weak. But in fact, we have no idea how strong we really are. And I think that that's almost what you're teaching them too, that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be struggling. It's okay, right? That's how we're going to get, how we're going to be able to flourish, right? Yeah. That's the best way to say it. You know, it's to say, we are struggling and we can be vulnerable, but that's how we can kind of help each other, you know? So, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm fine. It's like, I think you're right, 100%. It's like, you know, when those that want to put in the work and actually want to, you know, actually like figure out, like, I need to get out of this funk. Yeah. I see the biggest progression I've ever seen in my life. And that alone is rewarding, just to watch veterans come from when I see them coming in. Yeah. They're in this dark hole of like despair and this dark hole of whatever's going on in their life. So all of a sudden, like, they're excited to tell me about their updates. Like, this is what's going on. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm trying to maneuver here. You know, yeah, I noticed I failed here, but guess what? I found a different avenue of approach. And they start using the same language that I'm like we're providing each other. Yeah, because they even teach me a lot too. They teach me that there's no one way of doing things, right? I always talk about like therapy is great. What else? Right. Medication is great. What else? I always ask what else is out there.
But you know what? It goes back to, I was saying this on one show. I was watching a TV show one day, and it was a guy in the waiting room of a rehab center. And the lady behind the counter looked at him, and she was like, "How long are you going to wait?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "You do know this is for people who actually want it, not for people who need it." So my thing about that is we have resources, right? But there are people out there who they just don't want it.
Correct.
So it's not really for people who need it. They're for people who want it. So I was asking, I forgot who I was asking this to, how do we get people to actually want it? Like get in that mindset of this is what you need. I mean, I know it's what you need, but how do you get them to understand that they need it and they want it?
I think that's a beautiful question. I think that's one of the questions we're constantly trying to ask, because every client or veteran or family member that comes in needs something different, right? And wants something different. But to get there, we have to always think outside of the box. Just because there's a book that says this is how you do it,
right,
doesn't mean. Like I always tell like a lot of my staff, be flexible. What else? Like I always go back to that whole concept. What else is going on in their life, right? Like they'll be like, well, they're coming in here for employment. Okay, what else did you find out about them? Oh, they're also homeless. Okay, are they service connected? No. Are they connected to the VA? No. Okay, so we have several other things that are going on at the same time. But he wants to go. He wants to go to the working route first, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's find out first what he is capable of doing first, right? Or her, what she is capable, because again, veterans, all modalities, all genders, right? A lot of the hard challenges is trying to, like, it's usually for the peers, and this is where I always try to coach them. I like, look for everything. Look, like, you know, as they're coming in, what are they wearing? Do they look like they're in a good place, or do they look like they're struggling and they're just giving you what they're open to talk about, right?
But can it also be like a generational thing? Because for me, it's so hard to ask for help.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things. And I think I can go back to, I had a moment not that long ago where it's the hardest thing for me to ask for help. And go ahead.
No, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
But you know what I've learned to do, and because I preach this a lot, healthy conversations. Again, this is why I love doing this. I won't never ask you for help, but I will have a conversation with you, and I'm hoping in that conversation you feel me that I need some type of help.
Yeah.
Correct, and that's the reason for the questioning, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so
That's where I go back to that. Can it be a generational? Like, to me, it's generational baggage. We were told what to do and how to do it, and you better not come ask me again. Yeah. You better know what I'm thinking before I even think it. That's how I was raised. And you want to talk about Salvadorian parents? You better know. Like, you know what I mean? Those looks say something.
Yeah. Well, the thing is about this is the reason why the peers always play a big role. I always go back to that, right? Even though you might not ask for help, but you're more likely to drop some breadcrumbs to your best buddy, or drop some like, oh, I'm struggling here, but everything else here is okay, but I'm struggling here. They'll go back to it. It's a human nature thing. It's like we do it subconsciously always. Like when we do need assistance, we'll leave a few trails, right?
Yeah.
But because a lot of times, this is the reason why we teach a lot of motivational interviewing, why we teach a lot of I teach a lot of my staff listening skills, because I'm like, don't listen to respond. Right. Listen to understand.
Exactly.
What are you hearing? And then sometimes I'll just stop in and I'll listen in from time to time when I can. And I'll be like, oh, they need this and this. Yeah, but did you hear they also mention this and this and this?
Mm-hmm.
Like just pay more attention, right?
And you know, a lot of people always say they don't like to hear people vent, but because I've said this 100 times, I'll give someone 10, 15 minutes to vent because sometimes people just want to be heard.
Correct.
So I'm always open for that. I was like, I'll give you 10, 15 minutes. You can vent. Just go ahead. But I'm listening because I'm trying to pick up those breadcrumbs because I know when people are venting, they're really asking for help. They're really talking to you.
Yeah. And the beauty about that is that the communication skills, right? It's like, and I always tell them that like, you're not there to solve their problems.
Right.
Just let's just cut that right off the bat, right? Yes. Are you good at solving the problem? 100%. I would never take that away from my peers. The question is, do they just need to, like you said, vent, and do they just need to be heard for the first time, and being able to be seen as someone that's just being vulnerable?
And you know what? And that's why with conversations, like when people ask me for advice, I don't give advice.
Right.
I just say, let's talk it through. Yeah. Because talking it through, something's going to click in your mind. Even if they're just venting and you're listening and you're like, okay, and you might say a couple of things, but something's going to click to them as you're talking it through. Yeah. Right.
And that's the reflecting side of things, right? Even when someone talks to me and I'm like, I try to paraphrase what they say, and then they hear themselves saying, like, oh. Mm-hmm. Like they might not tell me that something clicked, but it's just like you sometimes you just see that aha moment, like
you see that aha moment.
Aha moment.
That happens to me all the time. Like I'll talk to my mom or something, and she's like, "Do you know how negative you sound?" I'm like, "I'm not even negative." She's like, "You just said this and this and this." I'm like, "Oh my god, I said that." It's reflecting. It's just interesting. Everything that you guys are saying, I'm just like listening, and it's like all, everything that I've, with managing the homeless veteran program, and how you were saying, well, why is there so many homeless veterans? And it goes back to like their decision. Like, who's to say where they're living right now in a tent is wrong?
Right.
They're comfortable. That might be where they're comfortable at. So who are we to say, hey, that house isn't good enough?
Right.
You know what I mean? And a lot of them that's where they're at. We've had veterans where we got them VASH vouchers. It's like Section 8, but for veterans. And we're like, okay, look, you get $800 a month, Social Security, $900 a month. So you only pay 30% of your income for rent. So we're going to give you this nice, beautiful apartment. We're going to furnish it for you, utilities and food, everything. $200 a month. You're set. You're a veteran. You're set. There's no excuse. We've done that for veterans, and they're just like, look, I can't sit inside four walls all day. I cannot just sit there. It's just not what they want. They don't feel free. They want to be out there open and,
well, no one's ever I'm sorry. Was that loud? No one's ever pointed that out to me like that. I'm glad you actually said that, because that makes sense. Like, who are we to say that where they at is not good enough for them?
Right. It's us. It's cultural.
Right.
Yeah. And there's this veteran. He lived off of Avenue M, and we went over there and met him. It's like he built this whole underground 3-bedroom house. It's like 3-bedroom. There's a little air conditioning system, a shower, like water, everything. Oh my God. Everything there, even a real bed. And we're like, okay, well, look, we can get you an apartment. He's like, I have a home. This is my home.
That's his home.
And we're just like, yeah, but we can get you like a habitable home with like air conditioning and a fridge. And he's just like,
I have that too.
I don't need that.
I don't want that.
Or and here's the other thing. We're removing them probably from their only social network that they have, right?
Yeah.
Because think about like the homeless community has their own culture. They have their own rules and laws as well. Like kind of like anywhere you go, any workplace that you go, we all have our own rules and policies, right? Yeah. A lot of homeless population has that same thing. Now think about it. If you have like 3-4 people that have been watching each other since day one, for a lot of veterans, that could be their only fire team, their squad, right? That's their squad. They're the ones that are going to watch each other no matter where they go, right? Just because we see them as, because the society, because like a society as a whole, we might see them as an eyesore, like, oh, they need to get out of the streets or whatever. It's not. Again, if they want to get out, that's a whole different other story, right? Like I said, they want to get out, right? Sometimes we go in, there's like when like Yvonne said, I think she makes a very valid point on this one. And like, oh yeah, like I'm about to get restricted. I'm about to, now you have to live. Now you have to pay the bills. Now you have to pay the taxes. Now that you're being this, now you have to live by the rules that are being placed by society. And at the same time, I'm like, when I was homeless, I was, you know, I hear this a lot. Like, I'm free. I could roam and leave whenever I want. I'm not stationed to one place. Maybe I'm a nomad at this point, right? You know, that's my style of living.
I've actually had a homeless person tell me that, because I was talking to this lady one day from a well-being place. I forgot from which, but the homeless lady told us that, because they was like, we can put you in a home. She was like, I don't want to, because I don't like the rules that they have. She was like, I'd rather be out here on the streets and live by my own rules.
Yeah, and they have that. Like, so I've been out in encampments, and there's, you know, like 20 people living in an encampment, and you know, there's dude that's sitting out here for a week at the front of the encampment, like a quarter mile out, and he's the watchdog for that week. You know, this person's responsibility is to get breakfast for the people. Like, that's that's just what they do, and that's their community. And if you take that away from them and separate them and put them in an apartment all the way over here, away from, you know, that whole, there's so much more to it than just, hey, let's get you an apartment.
Well, that's your psychological safety. We go back to that, right?
Yeah, and then even then, like, think about it. Like, in the military, that's like what she just mentioned. That's pretty military. We have a forward observation post, right? OPOP, right? And their main focus is to to kind of like either suppress or just kind of give a heads up to when there's like foreigners or enemies or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So they're also we're living with that moment where they're using the skills they've learned, like out in the field too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times we see some makeshift like antennas, and I'm like, I remember walking out there one time in one of the encampments. I'm like, oh, this guy used to be probably in the communications field, because I know exactly what he did, right? And I'm like, that's clever. But the concept behind it is just like, you know, we don't try to force anybody to get housed. We just guide them and tell them, like, okay, this is what you have available.
Right.
That's our main focus. We like in VPAN, our main focus is to educate and guide not only veterans but their family members. I'm like, okay, you need funeral arrangements or something that needs for a veteran, for your dad that might have passed away, because a lot of times, especially like a lot of the civilian counterparts, they don't know how to navigate the VA system. They don't know that there's 3 different branches of the VA.
Wow,
You have
I had no clue.
You have the Veteran Health Administration, you have the Veteran Benefits Administration, and then you have the National Cemetery Administration. And all 3 of them don't talk to each other.
So you know what? They sure don't. Because when I buried my dad 4 years ago, they don't talk to each other.
Oh my Lord! And then come on, you know.
So now think about that. Now, if the veteran's having a hard time, imagine the family members, right? Like yourself. And I'm sorry, my brother, you had to go through that, you know, because it's so much that we hear that so often now. That's the reason why this program exists now, because the VA has been like, nothing to blame the VA. The VA is just doing whatever they're being mandated to do, right? And then at the same time, it's like, okay, now we're able to pick up some of that slack now. We're like, good. Now the county of Los Angeles, the local county, is saying, like, we're seeing that we need to figure this out. We need to change something in the system. And the beauty now that for the first time, like my district communicates with all the other 4 districts. So whenever there's a veteran that says, oh, I have a veteran that's coming from Long Beach, he's going to be up in your area of operation, your AO, up here in District 5. Can you take care of him? I'm like, yeah. We got them. We'll pick them up or pick her up. Yeah. What do they need, and what have you started so far? Yeah. So instead of just saying, like, you just show up to a random place, like, now I'm already, okay, now we know that this person's coming. Let's guide them to wherever they need to get to.
But you know what I just noticed is when Mike shared that story, right? Immediately what you said next was, I'm sorry you went through that, my brother. And what I hear a lot from, you know, military is that brotherhood, right? And from what I've gotten from this conversation was that us as society, we don't do that. Yeah. We don't. We don't. And I think the whole time I was thinking about, I was like, you know why the veteran welcome home was so impactful? It wasn't really the name behind it. I think it was action.
Correct.
What a lot of these veterans said, I've waited so long for that. And just what you just showed me that I passed so many veterans and I never give them the acknowledgement, to be honest with you, or even that conversation. I'm always in a rush, or everything else matters. So when are they supposed to even feel that their needs are matter? That's maybe why they're okay where they are, because at least they're still seen with that gratitude, that psychological safety, that just simple love. Because not even your family who you grew up with, who you kind of wanted to go away to better and give opportunities, when you come back, that's not even there. Not even that, but to a complete stranger that you met, you know what I mean, through camp, through war, through all of this. It doesn't matter when you see them, you see that. Like, thank you, brother. How have you been? I've needed you. But what I saw that was that we lack in that. To even that recognition of what you said, they lack with being heard and being seen. And maybe they ran away from whatever it is, or wanted to get away from not being heard and seen. Then you go through this hoping that would have allowed that. And then you come home and yet that's still missing. So I think maybe as society, I would definitely say out there, and especially with, Friday coming around and being, and honoring our veterans. Hey, I challenge everyone. If you know a veteran, hey, say what's up, brother. Yeah. Because I think that they need to see that. Brothers and sisters, like you said, it's not just the male that are out there. It's also our female vets. Yeah. Shout out to Krishna. Because we also have a Vietnam veteran in our coalition, and she was also a Marine, and hoorah to her, and that's my girl Krishna. But you're absolutely right. And even when I did meet him, I was like, man, you guys are so dope. Like, I just wanted to talk to them.
You know what, Diana? But what the question is, like, so we are not veterans, us.
Yeah, we're
right?
not.
And so what are we going to do? And how do we do that?
Yeah,
right?
I think just being able to do that. Yeah, and we lack in that with each other too. Yeah.
So that's the next step. Like, okay, so we recognize the problem.
Yeah.
We see what the disconnect is and how it's not there amongst civilians.
Yeah.
Right. So what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I said a simple hello goes a long way.
Yeah.
Just even that.
I was just telling a friend of mine when I went hiking. What was it, Sunday when I went hiking.
Yeah.
We was going along the trail, and I normally do walks around my neighborhood, and I was telling him how I love to just go walking in the morning around my neighborhood, because I get a few people that are my neighbors always like, hi. Like, that means the world to me. Early in the morning, like, whenever anybody that says good morning to me or just hi in the morning, like, I appreciate those little things, and it makes my day so much better.
Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing.
I was at Cedar Brothers the other day, and I saw an older gentleman, and he had 2 40 ounces in his. And I was like, dang, it's not even 9. But you know what I did? I was, and you know me, I'm like, do. And of course, in my PJs, I'm like, hi, good morning. Hi, good morning. I stopped and I said, hi, good morning. How are you? And he slowly looked up at me. He goes, well, good morning, And I thought to myself, you know what? You're right. It's already 9 o'clock, but he'd rather just get drunk, not exist, because we look at them like they don't exist. But even me, I walk by, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Hey. But I think that's just me. But that's why I say a simple hello, really, you never really know.
Yeah.
Even for like with, veterans, if you see somebody with a veteran hat on or wearing, something, you can just say, hey, thanks for your service. Just something like that. And they look at you and they're just like, huh? They don't expect that. And just by saying that, you don't need to say anything else, just that you recognize and you appreciate, and it means so much.
And I think you said something very important too, like appreciate, right? Like, sometimes we never could say, like, I could never say to another woman veteran or male veteran that had gone through, because they both go through both military sexual trauma, I could never say, I understand what you've been through. I could never say that. I always say, I appreciate what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Because I know that was hard.
Yeah.
Because for me to say I understand, it's a lie.
Yeah.
Well, I just talked about that on my last show with Jacqueline Diaz, because she has a suicide prevention foundation, and we were just talking about that. And I always tell people, whenever something that tragic happens, they always say, sorry, I understand. It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah, you don't.
Never say that. Don't ever say you understand, because you don't not understand how it is to lose a child.
Yeah.
Regardless of how they lost them, but you would never understand that unless you was in their shoes and you lost a child. But never say you understand.
Nope.
But she just put out a post about that too on her Instagram about the things you should say and shouldn't say.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty interesting. I think I shared it,
but that's where I go back to being vulnerable, right? Like even like how you say, you can't relate to that veteran, right? But even us women in society that have gone through those traumas, we can take the time to sit down and tell them, I hear you. I do. And that can be our contribution from society to say, hey, I do hear you. I can't say I know where you're coming from because I'm not a vet myself, but I have my own story. Yeah. And we can
And that's relate. What the Wellbeing Coalition is about. There's so many different demographics. There's seniors, there's veterans, there's the transitional age youth, there's all these different demographics, and it's like all of us in the coalition are fit into one of those different demographics, and it's to build that culture and to build that sense of belonging, and kind of build from that. That's how you make the Antelope Valley a better place to live, by creating that cultural awareness and that buy-in. Everyone's a part of something, regardless of whatever your demographic is. And so that's what it's about.
Yeah,
I even like the coalition.
Yeah. Oh no, we're with it. We're grooving.
No, like I said earlier, I was reading the website, and I love what I read.
Yeah, no, even like Alejandro, our vet, I didn't know what I was going to talk to him about, but I actually made it kind of my business to sit next to everyone, because I was trying to see where everyone was coming from. Like she said, there was all these people in this room that have titles, and I was just at that. I am still an at-home mom. However, I was like,
that's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and I don't downplay it now.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. But I did walk in there with that. I was intimidated. So when I sat next to Alejandro, I didn't know what I was going to talk to him about. Turns out he's also from Hollywood, and then we were like, oh man, so is your husband, and then he was able to kind of be like, okay, yeah, you're cool with it. And, then we were able to just be on another level where he kind of allowed me in, to that, where he would always sit with the, veterans, and they kind of stuck together, and I was like, man, I want to come sit with them. I want to know what's going on. I just wanted to fit in. But I don't think it was that. I really wanted to know about them. And then I found out so many other things where I was relatable, and we build that friendship, I can honestly say. So that's why I said what I said.
No, I think it's great, because even like I always tell people, I'm like, that's one identity, right?
Yeah.
And same thing I tell to a lot of my veterans and a lot of the military personnel, like, yeah, that's one identity. And I'm gonna always go back to what else, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what else, right? I'm like, who are you now?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, were you an Army Ranger? Like my buddy was right now. Now I ask him, like, so what are you doing now? He goes like, well, I'm now a business consultant for this for-profit college. I'm like, okay. And then I asked some of my other friends, I'm like, so what are you now? I'm like, well, I'm now a minister for this church, and so forth and so forth.
Wow.
And then it's like, they already know that I'm waiting for the other answer. Like, I'm like, oh, before it used to be like, when they introduced us, I'm a Marine that was for this unit. This was my job. This was my full identity, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. And I always go back to that, right? I'm like, you attach yourself to the most powerful identity that you have, right? Like, this is a reason why it's hard to remove some of the gang members from, because that's their most powerful identity.
Yeah.
It's hard to remove some certain people from certain culture, because that's their strongest identity, right?
Right.
And same with military personnel. I'm like, if they were the door kickers and everything, that's their strongest identity. But I always ask, what else can we do now? Who are you going to be now that you're not there anymore, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying forget about it. I'm just saying, what can you add on to that identity?
Yeah, right? Yeah, for sure. You see, this is why I need. Yeah, I was like, this is why I need my veterans here.
No, what he just said made a lot of sense, because I was just like, whenever someone makes sense like that, I apply it to everything, right? And I was just thinking about someone else who was growing up in the wrong way and they're trying to turn their life around, you know. So I was just thinking about that. It's very interesting that you said that, but it makes sense.
It does. And it's funny that he says that because, like I was saying, I was managing that veteran program for years, right? And so I got away from that, and I'm in a totally different, I'm in workforce development now, and I'm just like, I was telling him, like, oh my God, I'm learning all these things. It's not what I know. I'm stretching myself, and it's not, I really missed that program, that veteran program. And he's like, well, the good thing is you're growing. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, I am, because it's like, what else, right? It's like, what else? Okay, well, this is the else. And right now I'm in the else, and it's difficult, and it's hard because I'm stretching myself and growing and doing something I've never done before. But so now I'm not that manager anymore. I'm this manager of this program of something totally different. So it's cool. It's we can be a master of many things, not just one. And it's up to us to say, okay, well, I'm going to grow, or I want to stay here forever because I'm good at this and I know this, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's great. I mean, we all supposed to grow anyways. You're not supposed to be the person you was last year. No.
So we're definitely not the same people we were.
Thank God.
Before 2020. I'll tell
so
you that
happy
much.
about that.
No, and you know,
That's,
I mean, I'm so grateful for all three of you guys for being on the show tonight, because I just learned a lot. Even like what you just said, that statement just gave me a whole different perspective on how to approach people and look at people. Because, you know, we have to look at it like that. You know, we got to get out of our own heads and paint this picture, you know, of what we think they should be. And I think I always say that anyways, accept people for who they are, not who we want them to be. You know what I mean? And that's very important.
Yeah, and I think sometimes even us for ourselves, we struggle with our accepting ourselves.
Right.
You know, I'm guilty.
I mean, we all are. Well, I mean, we're human. At the end of the day, we're still human, right?
Exactly.
But the most important part is just the growth part of it.
Right. That's what I always tell my kids that it's, you know, they can get in trouble and but sometimes they have to make those mistakes, right? So we can learn. But my biggest thing, and I always tell my kids, if I die tomorrow, I want you to remember this. What you do next is what matters.
Yeah.
Right.
What you do next is what matters, you know. And even one time my daughter, we were like getting in an argument and she goes, I just don't know what I'm going to do next, you know. And I said, you're doing exactly what I'm telling you. You're thinking about what you are going to, although you don't know it right now, you're thinking about what you do next matters, you know. So that's my thing.
Wow. Okay. So, you know, we are an hour and a half now.
Oh my goodness. Time flies by when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I love these conversations. I mean, I definitely hope when we put this out, you know, someone gets a takeaway from it, because I know I just did. And this is why I love having healthy conversations. You know, even if they're the hard conversations. I mean, if you get a takeaway from it, I mean, that's the point. That's the key. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say is have a ball at your ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know when I was in high school, all the Marine guys, I was like, man, I want to go to the ball, but I didn't know any Marines.
So you guys are actually having
So as from what I'm aware of right now, the Marine Corps League is having a ball.
Okay.
As far as myself, I have I have to go to different places tomorrow. Not these are more work related, but also personal related as well. But at the end of the day, I will end up at Bravery Brewery, because, you know, as I spoke to Sandra from there, and they're like, we're having this. They were having a ceremony, so just to get to see the whole ceremony from beginning to end. And again, I love the fact, I love talking about being a Marine in that sense, the other identity that I built off of, really, and of course my family, but it's because every tradition is still honoring the old, right? Like we have a cake cutting ceremony where we bring in a guest of honor. We also bring in the oldest Marine. We acknowledge that oldest Marine in the room, and we also acknowledge the youngest Marine in the room. The whole concept behind that is the tradition of passing down from the old to the new. Like you are now the new gatekeepers of the Corps. You have to keep up to the tradition that we have fulfilled and continue to fulfill and continue to push. And I always say the United States doesn't need a Marine Corps. The United States wants a Marine Corps to be exist.
Wow.
So it's one of those, like, and for us, and the best part to be, I don't think of any place to celebrate it better than a brewery. Since the Marine Corps was founded in Ton Tavern, Pennsylvania, so it's like right at so best place to be, I guess I want to say.
Right. And I'm gonna try to make it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Definitely try to make it
know.
up to Bravery Brewery, and big ups to Bravery Brewery for even putting on that.
Yeah, that's amazing. So maybe I won't ever make it to the ball, but I can make it to the brewery.
Yeah, and guess what? You get to see a lot of the traditions. You get to see it. Like, I don't know. I get chills out of it just because it just kind of, like I said, it honors what I even, like, I was part of that history.
Right.
I get to say that is my history now. I'm no longer like, just, I guess the best way I could say is just like knowing that I contributed to that,
Yeah.
And that's something that no matter where I end up in life, no one could ever take that away from me.
And I feel like saying hoorah right now after that.
Well, we're about to be out of here.
Yes.
So again, thank you, Sergeant Jimmy G. I just gave you a new name.
That's
because Yvonne gave me that name.
That's right.
Thank you, Yvonne. Truly appreciate you and your services, everything that you do with the coalition, and you as well, Diana.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for allowing this.
It's not me. It's not even about me. We talked about this. It's never about me.
No, I know.
It's about you, and today is about Jimmy.
Right.
It's about Yvonne today.
Yeah.
And she's going to be back with us.
No, but I say thank you for keeping the lights on, right?
Yes, sir.
Can we say that? Thank you for keeping the lights on?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't pay the bills over here.
I can say I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for having this conversation.
I learned so much today, you guys. You got from all three of you guys, and this is what about. This is why I love doing this.
Yeah.
I love having these conversations because I learn so much. It gives me a different perspective. So tomorrow, like I always say, I'm a better person today than I was yesterday.
That's
and tomorrow I'm gonna be a better person just from this conversation. So I definitely appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.